December 4th, 1944. 3:50 hours. Bougainville Island. Staff Sergeant James Sullivan, 23 years old from Chicago, Illinois, has been firing a Browning M1919 machine gun for 4 hours straight. The gun barrel is glowing red-hot in the darkness, like a cigarette ember. But this ember weighs 31 pounds and fires 400 rounds per minute. His assistant gunner, Private Danny Kowalski, 20 years old Pennsylvania farm kid with hands still bandaged from burns sustained 2 weeks ago, has changed barrels 3 times tonight. Each barrel change performed under incoming fire, each one completed in under 40 seconds. Professional, precise, exactly how Sullivan taught him. They have fired 840 rounds since the Japanese assault began at midnight. The result so far, 37 confirmed enemy soldiers dead. 2 tunnel systems collapsed into smoking rubble. 0 American casualties in Sullivan's sector. But here is what makes this impossible. Sullivan is not using standard ammunition. Every 5th bullet in his belt explodes on impact. Not metaphorically, literally explodes. 4,200 degrees Fahrenheit at the point of detonation. Bright orange flash visible from 1,000 yards away in the darkness. Burning aluminum fragments that melt through flesh and bone like acid through paper. The Japanese have a name for it. Kaminari-Ju, thunder gun. The weapon that announces itself with light and sound before the bullets even arrive. The weapon that turns cover into kindling and tunnels into ovens. Military ordnance engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland said this ammunition was mechanically unsound, theoretically incapable of sustained fire, too unstable for combat operations. The explosive charges would cook off inside the barrel after extended use. The gun would destroy itself. Sullivan just proved them wrong. 840 rounds, 3 barrel changes, 0 malfunctions. 0 premature detonations. Here is the part that sounds impossible. 3 weeks ago, Sullivan had never seen this ammunition. He did not know it existed. The blue-tipped rounds arrived in an unmarked crate with a single instruction. Fire in short bursts. Report results. 2 weeks ago, Sullivan nearly killed Kowalski testing it. Pushed the gun too hard. Fired too fast. The barrel split. Gas vented sideways. Burned Kowalski's right hand badly enough to send him to the field hospital for 8 days. 1 week ago, Japanese forces adapted. They reinforced their tunnel entrances with steel plates, 1/4 inch thick, salvaged from destroyed vehicles, specifically designed to stop explosive ammunition. Tonight, December 4th, those countermeasures failed catastrophically. The steel plates did not stop the explosions. They absorbed the heat, conducted it into the tunnels, turned Japanese defensive positions into furnaces. 2 enemy soldiers surrendered because they could not breathe. Their hands blistered from touching the superheated metal. And tomorrow morning Sullivan will wake up in his foxhole realizing he has created something that will haunt him for the next 58 years. A weapon system that saves American lives by the hundreds. A tactical doctrine that spreads across the Pacific theater like wildfire. An innovation that earns him a bronze star he will never wear, and a field manual bearing his name that he will try to forget. But also a guilt so profound that in 2003, dying of pneumonia in a Chicago veterans hospital at age 82, his final coherent words will be an apology to the assistant gunner he trained. The assistant gunner who will die in 4 months using Sullivan's techniques. The assistant gunner whose death Sullivan will blame on himself for teaching a 20-year-old farm kid how to paint targets on his own position with orange muzzle flashes. This is the story of how one machine gunner turned bullets into grenades. How tunnel warfare became an American advantage instead of a Japanese one. How necessity forced innovation. And how innovation extracted a price that no Bronze Star could repay. if you want to understand how garbage ammunition became the most feared weapon in the Pacific, why the United States Army classified it and tried to bury it after the war, what psychological price American soldiers paid for this tactical revolution, and why Sullivan died apologizing for saving hundreds of lives, you are in the right place. Before we show you how Sullivan discovered this weapon, this story took 18 hours to research. We went through declassified Army Ordnance Department reports from 1944 and 1945, after-action reports from the 37th Infantry Division archived at the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, Japanese prisoner of war interrogation transcripts that were not released until 1998, and service records that remained classified until 2008. If you value deep dives into military innovations that changed warfare but were deliberately forgotten, hit that subscribe button right now. It tells YouTube to share this with veterans, history enthusiasts, and people who understand that the most important stories are often the ones nobody talks about. That is where this story ends. But to understand how we got there, we need to go back 3 weeks. Back to when Sullivan first saw the ammunition that would haunt him for the rest of his life. November 13th, 1944, 6 Hajrs in the evening, Bougainville Island. 3 weeks before the moment we just witnessed. Sergeant Frank Martinez, 34 years old, from Alamogordo, New Mexico, company armorer, with 15 years of Army experience, approaches Sullivan's position carrying a wooden crate marked in black stencil, restricted, test ammunition. Martinez is nervous. This is unusual. The man survived the banana wars in Nicaragua. He was at Guadalcanal. He has seen things that would break most soldiers. Nothing makes Martinez nervous anymore, except this. Sullivan looks up from cleaning his M1919. The barrel is still warm from afternoon firing exercises. 200 rounds of standard ball ammunition putting holes in paper targets at 300 yards. Routine, boring, ineffective against the real targets that matter. What do you need? Frank Martinez sets the crate down, opens it. Inside is a single belt of 250 rounds. At first glance, it looks like standard 30-06 ammunition. Brass casings, copper-jacketed bullets, standard military issue, except each round has a blue tip instead of standard brass-colored metal. I need you to test something. Sullivan picks up a round, feels the weight. It is heavier than standard ball ammunition, noticeably heavier, perhaps 1.7 ounces more. His hands know the weight of every piece of equipment he carries. A rifleman learns to count ounces. A machine gunner counts pounds. Extra weight means fewer rounds carried. Fewer rounds means shorter fights. Shorter fights mean dead Americans. What is in these? Martinez pulls a single piece of paper from his jacket pocket. Army form, official, but mostly blank. Ordnance sent this up from division. No paperwork, no manual, no technical specifications, just this. He hands the paper to Sullivan. Fire in short bursts, report results. That is it. 7 words. No explanation of what the ammunition does, no warning about special handling procedures, no safety information. Nothing. Frank, what is in these rounds? Martinez meets his eyes. I don't know. They will not tell me. Sullivan weighs the round in his hand again. Something is inside that bullet. Something dense enough to add nearly 2 ounces of weight to a projectile that normally weighs 150 grains. You are giving me mystery ammunition and telling me to fire it through my gun. That is exactly what I am doing. Sullivan sets the round back in the crate, studies the blue tips. In military ammunition, color coding means something. Red tip means tracer. Black tip means armor piercing. Green tip means steel core. Blue tip means something, but Sullivan does not know what. What happens if it destroys my gun? Martinez shrugs. Then we will know it does not work. What happens if it destroys me? Then I will write a very apologetic letter to your mother. The joke lands flat. Neither man laughs. They both understand the implication. Ordnance does not send test ammunition to forward positions without very good reason. They have ranges for this, proving grounds, engineers with clipboards and protective equipment. Sending it here means either they are desperate or they do not have time for proper testing. Probably both. Now you might be wondering why Sullivan. Why did they choose him to test experimental ammunition? Why not a designated test crew or an ordnance specialist? The answer goes back to Tarawa, November 1943, 1 year earlier. And it starts with Sullivan's brother. November 20th, 1943, Tarawa Atoll. The invasion that taught the United States Marine Corps and Army that amphibious assault against fortified positions was going to cost thousands of lives per island. Sullivan was not a machine gunner then. He was a rifleman. 148th Infantry Regiment, 22 years old, 6 months in the Pacific. Still green enough to believe that courage and marksmanship would be sufficient to win firefights. His older brother Robert Sullivan, 26 years old, was a flamethrower operator. One of the most dangerous jobs in the entire military. Casualty rates for flamethrower teams exceeded 90% in their first 3 combat engagements. The weapon required operators to approach within 30 yards of enemy positions, sometimes closer. The effective range was actually 20 to 25 yards. Anything beyond that, and you were just wasting fuel. 30 yards. In combat terms, that is suicide range. Robert's job was to burn Japanese soldiers out of bunkers and pillboxes that standard weapons could not touch. Machine gun fire bounced off concrete and coral rock reinforcement. Rifle grenades sometimes worked, but often failed to penetrate. Artillery could collapse structures with direct hits, but forward observers could not always see the targets they needed to destroy. Flamethrowers worked. They worked horrifically well, but they required someone to walk up to the target and spray burning fuel through the firing ports. That someone was Robert. James Sullivan, the younger brother, watched from 50 yards away. He was part of the support element. His job was to provide covering fire while Robert advanced. Suppress enemy positions. Keep their heads down. Give Robert those critical seconds needed to close the distance and deploy the flamethrower. Sullivan fired 40 rounds at the area before Robert moved forward. Standard procedure. Suppressive fire. 40 rounds of 30 ought 6-ball ammunition into vegetation and earth and coral rock surrounding a Japanese bunker that had already killed 3 Marines that morning. The bullets disappeared into the terrain, did nothing visible. Maybe hit something. Probably not. Robert advanced. He moved in short rushes. 5 yards. Drop. 5 yards. Drop. Textbook movement under fire. He carried 60 pounds of equipment. The flamethrower fuel tanks, the ignition system, the hose, the nozzle, plus his standard infantry gear. He made it to 25 yards from the bunker without incident. Then a Japanese soldier emerged from a spider hole 15 feet behind Robert. A hole nobody had seen. A hole that Sullivan's 40 bullets had missed completely. The Japanese tunnel systems on these islands were elaborate beyond anything American forces had encountered before. Entrances hidden under vegetation, concealed by coral rock, camouflaged so effectively that you could stand 3 feet away and never see them. The soldier fired 1 shot. Type 38 Arisaka rifle, 6.5 millimeter. The bullet hit Robert in the back, penetrated the left fuel tank. High-pressure fuel sprayed across Robert's torso. The ignition pilot light at the nozzle was still lit. Physics did the rest. Robert burned. He fell forward, tried to crawl away from the flame. Could not. The fuel soaked his uniform. The fire spread. He screamed for 11 seconds before he stopped moving. Sullivan watched from 50 yards away. He could see everything, could do nothing. Running forward would accomplish nothing except adding a second burning body to the scene. He fired at the spider hole, 20 rounds, killed the Japanese soldier who had shot Robert. Killed him 3 times over. Did not matter. Robert was already dead. After Tarawa Sullivan requested transfer to machine gun crew. The officers asked why. Machine gunner was more dangerous than rifleman. Higher casualty rate, more exposed positions. Heavy weapons crews attracted enemy fire like magnets. Sullivan's answer was simple. If I am going to fire hundreds of rounds and accomplish nothing, at least let me do it with a gun that fires hundreds. The real reason, which he never said out loud, was more complex. Robert died because 40 rifle rounds could not find a hidden target. Maybe 400 machine gun rounds could. If you cannot see the enemy, you need more bullets. More bullets mean more chances to hit something that matters. More chances to collapse a spider hole. More chances to suppress a position long enough for someone else to advance without dying. More chances to prevent another brother from burning to death while his sibling watches from 50 yards away. Sullivan had one advantage most soldiers did not have. An advantage that had nothing to do with physical strength or courage or marksmanship. Exceptional auditory processing. Growing up in Chicago's South Side during the Depression meant work came before school. Sullivan worked as a machinist starting at age 16. South Side metal fabrication shops. Operating lathes. Operating drill presses. Operating grinding wheels. 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. You learned to hear problems before seeing them. A lathe bearing wearing out makes a specific sound at 2400 revolutions per minute. Different from normal operation. Higher pitched. Inconsistent rhythm. You hear it, you stop the machine immediately, you prevent catastrophic failure. Sullivan could hear different patterns in chaos, could distinguish signal from noise, could identify which sound in a symphony of industrial noise meant danger and which sounds were normal operation. In combat, this translated to useful skills. He could hear enemy soldiers digging through artillery bombardment noise. The rhythmic scrape of entrenching tools on coral rock had a distinct frequency. He could distinguish enemy movement from wind-moving vegetation. Human movement has rhythm, wind does not. He could identify weapon types by sound signature at 300 yards. A Type 92 heavy machine gun sounds different from a Nambu light machine gun. Sullivan did not have better eyes. He had better ears. And soon he would have better ammunition. But first, he needed to understand the problem. The specific tactical problem that made conventional ammunition nearly useless against the enemy he faced. November 1st through November 13th, 1944, Bougainville Island, Company C, 48th Infantry Regiment, 37th Infantry Division has been on this island for 2 weeks. Casualties so far, 23 killed in action, 41 wounded seriously enough to require evacuation. Dozens more wounded but still combat effective, not from direct combat, not from firefights, not from frontal assaults or defensive positions being overrun, from tunnels. The Japanese mastered subterranean warfare in ways that American forces were completely unprepared to counter. Every island in the Pacific had them. Every defensive position incorporated them. Some tunnel systems extended hundreds of feet underground. Some connected entire defensive networks spanning half a mile or more. They made conventional infantry tactics nearly obsolete. On the night of November the 9th, Japanese sappers emerged from a spider hole 40 yards inside the American perimeter. Nobody knew the tunnel extended that far. The entrance was somewhere in the jungle beyond the wire. The tunnel ran underground, passed beneath the defensive positions, and opened in a carefully camouflaged exit point behind American lines. The sappers threw 6 grenades into the command post tent. 4 men died instantly. 7 more were wounded by shrapnel. One lost his right arm. 2 would die of their wounds over the next week. When American soldiers responded rushing toward the sound of explosions, the sappers vanished back into the hole like ghosts. One moment there, next moment gone. Just a circular opening 3 feet wide, disappearing into darkness. Sullivan fired 300 rounds at the suspected tunnel entrance. Standard ball ammunition, 30-06. Every bullet disappeared into earth and vegetation. The tunnel remained intact. The defenders inside remained safe, protected by 6 to 8 feet of packed earth and coral rock that rifle-caliber ammunition could not penetrate. Sergeant Martinez showed Sullivan the numbers 1 week later, numbers that explained why they were losing despite superior firepower. Week 1 on Bougainville. Company C expenditure 6,200 rounds of machine gun ammunition. Confirmed enemy kills 3. Ratio 2,067 rounds per kill. For comparison, during the Normandy campaign, average ratio was 250 rounds per kill. In Italy, 340 rounds per kill. On Bougainville, 2,067 rounds per kill. Martinez laid out the mathematics on a scrap of paper using a pencil stub. Mac, at this rate, we will run out of bullets before they run out of holes. Sullivan asked the obvious question. Why does it not work? Martinez explained the physics. Professional, clinical. Standard 30-06 ball ammunition is designed to penetrate human tissue. Maximum 18 inches of flesh and bone. The bullet is optimized for this specific purpose. Against packed earth, the bullet burrows 6 to 8 inches and stops. The earth absorbs the kinetic energy. The bullet cannot continue. Against logs, the bullet embeds itself in wood grain and stops. Does not breach. Does not pass through unless the log is very thin or very rotten. Against rock, the bullet fragments on impact or ricochets. The rock is harder than the bullet. The bullet loses. The kinetic energy disperses into the first material the bullet hits. No secondary damage beyond the penetration point. Just a hole 6 to 8 inches deep and then nothing. You can fire 1,000 rounds at a tunnel entrance covered with logs and earth, and the tunnel remains intact. The defenders inside remain safe, protected by material that rifle-caliber ammunition was never designed to defeat. American forces tried everything they could think of to solve this problem. Flamethrowers worked, but operators had to approach within 30 yards. Casualty rate for flamethrower operators in the Pacific Theater was 92% within their first 3 combat engagements. Most died before completing their 3rd mission. Some died on their first. Artillery could collapse tunnels with direct hits, but forward observers could not see hidden entrances. Thousands of shells were expended trying to collapse tunnel systems that standard infantry weapons could not touch. Bangalore torpedoes and satchel charges worked at close range, but required soldiers to crawl within feet of enemy positions to emplace them. Suicide missions. Result of all this. 41,000 American combat deaths in Pacific Island campaigns from 1943 to 1945. Post-war analysis estimated that between 30 and 40% of those casualties occurred within 50 yards of fortified positions that conventional small arms could not effectively engage. Thousands of Americans died because bullets could not penetrate earth. On November 11th, Sullivan tried an experiment. He fired 1,800 rounds across 6 hours at 12 suspected tunnel positions. Methodical, systematic. He marked each suspected entrance with a stake during daylight. After dark, he fired 150 rounds at each stake position. That night, Japanese sappers broke through the perimeter anyway. Different location. 2 more Americans dead, 5 wounded. Sullivan sat in his foxhole with Kowalski after the attack. Both men exhausted, both men alive, both men beginning to understand that what they were doing was not working and would never work. They cleaned the M1919 in silence, broke it down, wiped carbon fouling from the bolt, oiled the moving parts, reassembled it, loaded a fresh belt, made ready for the next engagement that would accomplish nothing. Kowalski asked a question. "Sarge, why did they put you on machine gun?" Sullivan paused, long enough that Kowalski started to apologize for asking something too personal. Sullivan answered before the apology finished. "Because I volunteered." Kowalski processed this. But why? Sullivan stared at the jungle darkness beyond their position. Somewhere out there, Japanese soldiers were digging, creating more tunnels, more spider holes, more positions that American bullets could not touch, because my brother could not. First time Sullivan mentioned Robert to anyone. First time he acknowledged out loud why he transferred from rifle to machine gun. First time he admitted that everything he did in this war was an attempt to solve a problem that killed his brother. Kowalski did not ask follow-up questions. He understood enough. 2 days later, Martinez brought the blue-tipped ammunition. Sullivan still does not know what is inside those bullets. But he knows one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever it is, it better work. Because what they have now does not. November 14th, 1944. 4:30 in the morning. Sullivan loads the mystery belt into his M1919. The blue-tipped rounds alternate with standard ball ammunition in a pattern Martinez suggested. 1 blue tip every 5th round. The ratio might be wrong, might be too many, might be too few. Nobody knows. They are making this up as they go. Kowalski crouches beside him, hands on the spare barrel, ready to change it if the gun overheats or malfunctions or explodes. His voice is quiet, nervous. "Sarge, what if those rounds are defective? What if they blow up the gun?" Sullivan does not look away from the jungle darkness ahead. "Then we die. But if we do not try something new, we die anyway." Slowly. 4:37 in the morning. The scratching sounds begin. Enemy digging. 190 yards out. Sullivan knows the distance because he paced it during daylight. He knows the sound because he has heard it every night for 2 weeks. 4:46 in the morning. Metallic click from the warning cans strung in the outer wire. Sappers emerging, moving forward, preparing to throw grenades or satchel charges or whatever they brought tonight to kill Americans. Sullivan cannot see anything. Pure darkness. New moon. Cloud cover. Visibility maybe 6 inches. Standard doctrine says, wait for visible target. Do not waste ammunition firing blind. But Robert died following standard doctrine. Robert died waiting for visible targets while invisible enemies crawled out of holes and shot him in the back. Sullivan squeezes the trigger. The M1919 roars to life. 400 rounds per minute. Every 5th round is blue-tipped mystery ammunition. First 4 rounds disappear into darkness with the normal crack of supersonic bullets cutting air. The sound Sullivan has heard 10,000 times. Standard. Expected. Ineffective. The 5th round hits something solid 190 yards away. Bright orange flash. Sharp, distinct pop. Different from any sound Sullivan has ever heard in combat. The flash lasts maybe 0.3 of a second. Long enough for Sullivan to see everything illuminated in that moment. Palm fronds. Shattered log. Human figure diving sideways. And most importantly, most critically, most impossibly, a tunnel entrance. Circular, 3 feet in diameter, wooden reinforcement planks visible. Sullivan thinks one thing. Did I hit their grenade? Did they have explosives that detonated? The 6th round hits 12 feet to the right of the first impact. Same bright orange flash, same sharp pop. Sullivan realizes something fundamental has changed. Oh shit. The bullets explode. Sullivan's brain processes tactical information at combat speed. The kind of rapid calculation that keeps soldiers alive when thinking too slowly means dying. Each explosive impact creates light. Light reveals targets. Light allows precision targeting in darkness. Light turns invisible enemies into visible ones. He fires a 20-round burst at the tunnel entrance. 4 of those rounds are blue-tipped mystery ammunition. All 4 impacts cluster within 10 feet of the entrance. The flashes create a strobe light effect, freeze-frame images of the battlefield. Sullivan counts 5 Japanese sappers scrambling back toward the tunnel, exposed, visible, trapped between advancing and retreating. One is not fast enough. An M1919 round hits the ground 3 feet from him. The explosion catches him in the side. Sullivan sees the wound through his next muzzle flash. Glowing, actually glowing orange, burning aluminum embedded in flesh. Kowalski's voice cuts through the gunfire, high-pitched, terrified. "Jesus Christ, Sarge, what is that?" Sullivan's voice stays calm, focused. "Keep your hand on that spare barrel. We are about to need it." He shifts fire to a second suspected tunnel entrance, 40 yards left of the first. He fires a 30-round burst, 6 M1A1 impacts. The wooden reinforcement planks at this tunnel entrance catch fire. Real fire, sustained burning. The flames spread through dry vegetation. Now Sullivan has actual illumination. Firelight, better than muzzle flash, steadier, longer lasting. He can see 3 more sappers running, retreating toward cover, trying to escape the killing zone. Standard ball ammunition forces them to dodge and weave. M1A1 rounds eliminate their cover. A log explodes into splinters. An earth mound sprays soil. Everything the sappers try to hide behind becomes shrapnel. All 3 go down within 15 seconds. 4:51 in the morning. 5 minutes of combat. Sullivan has fired 180 rounds. The barrel is glowing red-hot in the darkness, visible even without looking directly at it. No more movement ahead, just flames and silence. The entire perimeter has gone quiet. Every machine gun position stopped firing. Everyone is watching Sullivan's sector, watching the orange flashes that lit up the jungle like lightning strikes. Lieutenant James Crawford, 28 years old, from Portland, Oregon, crawls forward through the communication trench, reaches Sullivan's position, and looks at the burning jungle with an expression somewhere between awe and confusion. "Sullivan, what the hell kind of ammunition is that Sullivan keeps the M1919 trained on the kill zone? The kind that works, sir." Crawford watches the fires burn. "Did you collapse those tunnels?" "Don't know, sir. Hard to tell from here. At first light we are going out there. I need to see what this did. They wait for dawn. Standard security protocol. Nobody ventures beyond the perimeter wire in darkness." 6:23 in the morning. First light reveals devastation. The primary tunnel entrance Sullivan targeted is partially collapsed. The wooden reinforcement planks burn through completely. Inside the tunnel, visible from 50 yards away, are 2 bodies. Both show burn injuries consistent with aluminum incendiary fragmentation. The secondary tunnel entrance is completely collapsed. The fire spread through dry vegetation and ignited the wooden support beams internal to the tunnel itself. Structural failure brought down approximately 15 feet of the tunnel's roof. Scattered across the 200-yard kill zone are 7 Japanese bodies. All show a combination of gunshot wounds from ball ammunition and severe burn injuries from incendiary explosive rounds. 3 of the bodies have fragments of burning aluminum embedded so deeply that the fragments burned through tissue into bone. Crawford orders a patrol forward at 6:45. They find 5 more bodies in the collapsed tunnels, partially buried, crushed by falling earth. Among the recovered equipment are 23 stick grenades, 4 satchel charges packed with TNT and scrap metal. Detailed maps of the American defensive positions with attack routes marked in red pencil. This was not a probing attack. This was a planned assault. Sullivan's 180 rounds stopped all of it. Crawford files the after-action report at 1100 hours. Engagement duration 14 minutes. Ammunition expended. 180 rounds mixed ball and M1919 incendiary explosive. Enemy casualties. 12 confirmed killed in action. Friendly casualties, 0. Tunnel systems destroyed or rendered inoperable, 2 confirmed. Assessment: M1919 ammunition, highly effective against fortified positions and subterranean defensive works. Immediate resupply requested. Sergeant Frank Martinez does the mathematics on the back of an ammunition inventory form. Previous 3 tunnel clearing engagements on Bougainville. Average ammunition expenditure: 2,400 rounds per confirmed enemy casualty. Average American casualties per engagement: 7 wounded, 2 killed. Sullivan's engagement last night: 180 rounds, 12 enemy killed, 2 tunnels destroyed, 0 Americans wounded, 0 Americans killed. Martinez shows Sullivan the numbers. Mac, you just achieved 2,000% better efficiency than standard ammunition. Sullivan walks out to the closest body with Crawford and Martinez, all 3 men silent. The Japanese soldier is maybe 22 years old. The right side of his torso shows a cluster of burn wounds. Aluminum fragment embedded in his shoulder blade. The fragment burned through muscle tissue into bone. A blood trail in the volcanic mud shows the soldier crawled 8 feet before dying, tried to reach cover, tried to escape, could not. Bled out in the darkness while Americans waited for dawn. Sullivan stares at the body. This is not how bullets are supposed to work. Crawford looks at the collapsed tunnels, the effectiveness. But it works. That is what matters. Sullivan's voice is quiet. Sir, I just killed 12 men with 180 rounds. Last week I fired 2,500 and killed nobody. Martinez understands what Sullivan is really saying. And last week we lost 4 men. This morning 0. Sullivan keeps staring at the body. Robert died because flamethrowers were the only thing that worked against tunnels, and flamethrowers burn people. Now we have bullets that burn. Feels like I just traded one way of burning people for another. Crawford does not have an answer for that. Neither does Martinez. They stand in silence, looking at what innovation accomplishes when necessity forces creativity. As the patrol returns to the perimeter, Sullivan notices something that Crawford sees at the same moment. Sullivan's firing position is clearly visible from 400 yards away. Why every M1919 impact created a bright orange flash in the darkness. Each flash announced Sullivan's position as clearly as firing a flare. Crawford sees the tactical problem immediately. You just painted a target on yourself. If we use this at night again, Japanese mortars will zero in on those flashes in under 3 minutes. Sullivan nods. So we have ammunition that works but reveals our position. Martinez adds the final piece. Trade-offs. Always trade-offs. Crawford files his after-action report with a recommendation. Request 10,000 additional rounds of M1919 incendiary explosive ammunition for Company C. Request tactical employment guidance from Ordnance. The response arrives by 4 in the afternoon. Request approved. Ammunition en route. Expected delivery November 16th. No doctrine guidance available. Instructions. Crews must develop their own tactics through field experimentation. Sullivan reads the response over Crawford's shoulder. They are giving us grenades in bullet form and telling us to figure it out ourselves. Martinez lights a cigarette. Welcome to the cutting edge, Mac. Welcome to being the guys who have to learn the hard way. What Sullivan does not know yet is that in 48 hours he will learn exactly how hard that way can be. He will push the M1919 too far, fire too fast, generate too much heat. The ammunition he just proved works will nearly kill the assistant gunner he is responsible for keeping alive. Martinez breaks the silence. Mac, they want you to write down everything you learned, everything about how you used it, loading ratios, firing discipline, barrel temperature, all of it. Other crews are going to test this stuff and they need to know what works. Sullivan looks at his hands, still trembling slightly from adrenaline. These are the hands that just killed 12 men with a weapon that should not exist. These are the hands that will write the doctrine that spreads across the Pacific theater. These are the hands that will teach Kowalski the tactics that get him killed. I will write it tonight. Martinez nods. Good, because in 72 hours, every crew in this company is getting 1,000 rounds of this stuff. And if they use it wrong, they will die. Your job is to make sure they use it right. Sullivan understands the weight of what Martinez just said. He is no longer just a machine gunner. He is now the man responsible for keeping dozens of other machine gunners alive by teaching them how to use ammunition that nobody understands yet. Crawford puts a hand on Sullivan's shoulder. Get some rest, Mac. Tomorrow we start training every gun crew in the company. Sullivan walks back to his foxhole. Kowalski is already there, cleaning the M1919. Kowalski looks up. You okay, Sarge? Sullivan sits down, takes his helmet off, runs his hands through his hair. No idea, kid. No idea. November 16th, 1944. Company C receives 10,000 rounds of M1A1 ammunition. Martinez distributes the crates personally. 1,000 rounds per machine gun crew. 8 crews total. Instructions are simple. Experiment with loading ratios. Test different firing patterns. Document everything. Figure it out before someone dies figuring it wrong. Across the company perimeter, 8 machine gun crews begin their education. Most will learn successfully. Some will learn the hard way. Corporal Joe Martinez loads his belt with a 1-to-1 ratio. Every other round is M1A1, maximum explosive effect. His crew engages a Japanese probe that evening. The visual effect is spectacular. Orange flashes every other round. The jungle lights up like a fireworks display. Then the barrel starts smoking. Not normal heat shimmer. Actual smoke. White. Acrid. After 80 rounds, the barrel cracks. A longitudinal split 4 inches long starting at the chamber. The gun jams immediately. Combat effectiveness drops to 0. Gun out of action. Crew combat ineffective until replacement barrel arrives from depot. 3 days minimum. Sergeant Paul DiMaggio takes the opposite approach. Conservative. He loads 1 M1A1 round for every 9 standard ball rounds. His crew engages targets that same night. The explosive rounds detonate, but the psychological effect is minimal. The enemy stays in cover. They return fire. The engagement drags on for 12 minutes. DiMaggio's crew expends 600 rounds and achieves 2 confirmed kills, insufficient explosive effect. Sullivan's approach falls between the 2 extremes. 1 M1A1 round for every 4 standard ball rounds, 1-to-4 ratio. Enough explosive effect to create psychological pressure. Not so much that the barrel overheats catastrophically. Against fortified positions, he adjusts to 1-to-3. Against visible targets in light cover, he adjusts to 1-to-5. Flexible. Adaptive. This ratio will become standard across the Pacific theater. Sullivan's ratio, Sullivan's pattern, Sullivan's innovation. But first, he has to survive learning it. November 17th, 1944. 9:30 at night. Japanese launch a probing attack against the eastern perimeter. Not Sullivan's primary sector, but close enough that Crawford orders him to provide supporting fire. The attack hits Crew 3's position hard. 20 to 30 Japanese infantry supported by knee mortar fire. Crew 3 has standard ball ammunition only. The enemy keeps advancing. Crawford's voice cuts through the radio static. Sullivan, engage. Support Crew 3. Sullivan acknowledges. Loads a belt with 1:3 ratio. Aggressive loading. He wants to break this attack fast. Pride. Confidence. The belief that he has mastered this weapon system in 4 days. He is about to learn that mastery takes longer than 4 days. Range is 280 yards. Japanese infantry using fallen logs as cover. Sullivan opens fire. Firing rate 500 rounds per minute, faster than his normal cadence. But the situation demands speed. Crew 3 needs help now. First 40 rounds produce spectacular results. Logs exploding in sequence. Enemy forced to fall back. Sullivan feels invincible. Kowalski notices first. Sarge barrel is smoking more than usual. Sullivan does not look away from his targets. It is fine. Keep feeding the belt. Kowalski keeps feeding. Rounds 91, 90. 92, 93. Round 94 detonates inside the chamber. The explosion is contained by the chamber walls. The M1919 was designed to handle catastrophic ammunition failure. The chamber holds, but the barrel does not. A longitudinal split opens along 4 inches of barrel length near the chamber. Gas under extreme pressure vents sideways through the split instead of forward through the muzzle. Sullivan's face is sprayed with superheated gas. His goggles save his vision. Army-issue goggles designed to protect against sand and dust. Not designed for this, but effective anyway. Kowalski's right hand is feeding the belt when the gas vents. His hand is positioned exactly wrong. Directly in the path of the escaping pressure, superheated gas and particulate carbon blast across his knuckles. He screams, pure pain, instinctive, pulls his hand back. Blisters form instantly across 3 fingers. Second-degree burns. The ammunition belt jams. The gun stops firing. Combat effectiveness drops to 0 at the exact moment Crew 3 needs support most. Sullivan's voice stays calm despite the chaos. Sir, gun is down. Premature detonation. Crawford runs towards Sullivan's position. Can you switch to the spare barrel? Sullivan checks the chamber. Sees the crack. Sees the structural damage. Negative. Chamber is damaged. Gun is finished. Crew 3 holds their position. Barely. They expend all 600 rounds they have loaded. 3 men are wounded. 1 seriously. If Sullivan's gun had stayed in action, the casualties might have been 0. But Sullivan knows. Sullivan will always know that his mistake put other men at risk. The medic treats Kowalski's hand, wraps the fingers, applies burn gel. Kowalski's face shows the effort of not screaming again. He looks at Sullivan, tries to apologize. Sarge, I am sorry. Sullivan cuts him off. His voice is hard, flat. No. This is on me. I fired too fast. I got greedy. I thought I knew what I was doing. I was wrong. Martinez examines the ruined M1919. Mac, this gun is done. You need a replacement from depot. 3 days minimum. Sullivan sits alone after the medic takes Kowalski to the aid station. Thinks about Robert burning at Tarawa. Thinks about Kowalski's hand burning tonight. Fire. Always fire. His family's curse apparently extends to experimental ammunition. Crawford brings Martinez to Sullivan's position at midnight. Crawford speaks first. Mac, I need to know exactly what happened. If this ammunition is dangerous, we pull it from all crews immediately. Sullivan is honest. Sir, I fucked up. I fired too fast. I pushed the gun too hard. I got confident and confidence killed my discipline. Martinez asks the technical questions. What was your firing rate? 500 rounds per minute. How many M1A1 rounds impacted before failure? Approximately 30 to 35 explosive rounds in 90 seconds. Martinez does the mathematics in his head. That is 1 M1A1 impact every 2 to 3 seconds. Each impact generates 4,200 degrees Fahrenheit at the point of explosion. The barrel absorbed some of that heat through conduction. You cooked your own barrel from the target end. Crawford processes this. So it is not the ammunition, it is the rate of fire. Martinez confirms. Correct. M1A1 works, but it generates heat that standard ammunition does not. Crews need firing discipline, they need cooling intervals, they need barrel change protocols. Sullivan spends the next 3 hours writing, pencil on paper, field notebook. He titles it, Technical Employment of M1A1 Incendiary Explosive Ammunition. The content is practical, specific, based on painful experience. Loading ratios, standard 1:4, fortifications 1:3, suppression 1:5, firing discipline, maximum sustained fire 80 rounds, mandatory cooling period 30 seconds between bursts. Barrel change every 200 rounds regardless of visible heat. Night employment, fire 20 to 30 rounds maximum, cease fire immediately, relocate 25 to 50 yards from original position, wait 2 to 3 minutes for enemy counter-battery fire to hit the old position, resume from new location, range limitations, optimal 50 to 400 yards. Beyond 600 yards, expect 30% failure rate. Barrel monitoring. Red-hot glow visible in darkness means approaching critical temperature. Change barrel immediately. Crawford reads the document at 3:00 in the morning. Mac, this is better than anything Ordnance sent us. I am forwarding this to battalion. Every crew needs this information. Sullivan's voice is flat. Sir, I learned this by destroying a gun and burning my assistant gunner. Crawford's response is equally flat. And now nobody else has to learn it that way. That is what doctrine is. Expensive lessons written down so they only cost once. November 26th. Kowalski returns from medical. His right hand is still bandaged. The burns are healing, but slowly. He reports to Sullivan's position. Sullivan has a replacement M1919 now. Kowalski stands at attention. Sarge, I am ready. Sullivan looks at the bandaged hand. Kid, your hand is still wrapped. You cannot feed belts like that. Kowalski meets his eyes. I can do it left-handed. I have been practicing. Danny, you do not have to prove anything. You got hurt because I made a mistake. Kowalski's voice is firm. You did not make me put my hand there. I am the assistant gunner. Feeding the belt is my job. I knew the risks. They sit in the foxhole that evening. No combat, no firing, just two soldiers talking. Kowalski breaks the silence. You know what I realized, Sarge? That night you first used the thunder rounds. You did not hesitate. Most guys would test it careful. But you opened up straight into darkness. Sullivan does not respond. Kowalski continues. It was not about testing ammunition. You were fighting the enemy that killed your brother, the one you could not see at Tarawa. Sullivan's throat tightens. Kowalski's voice is certain. I get it now. Why you volunteered for machine gun. Why you took the mystery ammunition without questions. You have been trying to solve the same problem since Tarawa. How to kill enemies you cannot see. How to save the next guy before he has to get close with a flamethrower. Sullivan finally speaks. Something like that. Kowalski nods. Then I am glad I am your assistant gunner. That is worth getting burned for. Worth dying for if it comes to that. Sullivan turns sharply. Do not say that. Kowalski meets his eyes. I mean it, Sarge. What we are doing here matters. Your doctrine is going to save a lot of lives. Sullivan teaches Kowalski the new doctrine, shows him how to monitor barrel temperature by color, shows him proper belt feeding cadence, shows him the shoot and scoot night tactics. Sullivan makes Kowalski promise something. If I ever fire too long again, you hit me. Throw something. Do whatever it takes to make me stop. Kowalski agrees, but adds his own condition. Deal. But you have to promise something too. Stop thinking every casualty is your fault. You did not kill your brother. The Japanese did. Sullivan's throat is tight. I know. Kowalski pushes. Do you? Because you act like you are responsible for everyone who dies in this war. Someone has to be. No, someone has to fight. That is all we can do. The doctrine spreads. Sullivan's field manual gets copied by hand, distributed across the division. Crews start calling it Sullivan's Bible. Sullivan hates the attention, hates the credit, hates that his name is associated with innovation built on pain. But the doctrine works. Crews using Sullivan's protocols experience significantly lower weapon failure rates, lower injury rates, higher enemy casualty rates, lower American casualty rates. December 1944 through February 1945. Sullivan's doctrine becomes standard across the Pacific Theater. 1st Marine Division receives 400,000 rounds preparing for Okinawa. 3rd Marine Division receives 350,000 rounds. 7th Infantry Division receives 280,000 rounds. Reports come back. All of them reference Sullivan's tactical employment protocols. All of them credit his innovation with reducing casualties. Crawford shows Sullivan the reports. Mac, your tactics are saving lives across the Pacific. Sullivan reads them silently. January 15th, Luzon. Sergeant Michael Duca's team engages bunker complex. 220 rounds M1A1 over 6 minutes. 3 connecting tunnels collapsed. Same complex resisted 3 previous assaults over 2 weeks using standard ammunition. February 23rd, Iwo Jima. Machine gun team. Cave system near Mount Suribachi. 340 rounds M1A1. Ignited ammunition stored inside cave. Secondary explosion killed 18. Sullivan sets the reports down, and taking lives. Let us not forget that part. Crawford does not argue. Crawford is a veteran. He understands complexity. Intelligence analysis from February 1945 shows Japanese tactical adaptation. Interrogation reports indicate defenders abandoning tunnel positions after 30 to 40 M1A1 impacts. One report quotes a captured Japanese soldier directly. Thunder machine creates fear. Men cannot stay in position when fire is burning everything around them. Martinez shares this with Sullivan. Mac, the psychological effect is as important as the physical damage. We are making them afraid to fight from cover. Sullivan's response is quiet. You mean we are terrorizing them? We are making them choose survival over mission. That is better than killing them. Sullivan thinks about this. Is it, they survive but traumatized? I survive with guilt. Everyone loses except the politicians who started this. The silence stretches. Martinez stares at his cigarette. Crawford at the jungle. Sullivan at nothing. Because Sullivan is right, and being right about this provides no comfort at all. March 18th, 1945. Luzon. Company C has rotated to lower intensity operations, securing supply routes, defending logistics nodes. Sullivan is at battalion headquarters, 200 yards from his position, attending a briefing about ammunition distribution. Routine. Boring. Kowalski is manning the M1919 alone. Standard procedure when Sullivan attends meetings. Kowalski is trained, competent, trusted. 3:30 in the afternoon. Japanese counterattack hits the supply depot. Intelligence failure. Nobody expected an attack. 40 to 50 infantry supported by mortar fire. Kowalski engages professionally. Disciplined fire. Burst control. 1:4 M1A1 ratio. Everything Sullivan taught him. Survivors report Kowalski's fire was effective. 6 to 8 attackers killed. Enemy advance disrupted. But Japanese mortar team locks onto his position. The orange flashes give them a perfect aiming point. Kowalski attempts to relocate. Sullivan's doctrine: shoot and scoot, fire, move, survive. He ceases fire, begins displacement to alternate position 30 yards away. .338 81mm mortar round. Direct hit on Sullivan's position during Kowalski's movement between locations. Kowalski is killed instantly. Sullivan hears the explosion, knows the sound, knows the location, runs back from battalion headquarters, runs knowing what he is going to find. He reaches the position. M1919 destroyed. Kowalski in the crater. Other soldiers calling for medic, even though everyone knows a medic cannot help. Sullivan kneels beside Kowalski, checks for pulse, protocol, training. Kowalski's right hand is still bandaged from November, the burns never fully healed. Sullivan removes his helmet, sits in volcanic mud. Crawford arrives, puts a hand on Sullivan's shoulder, says nothing. Sullivan's voice is flat. He was using the thunder rounds. The flashes gave away his position. Crawford's voice is gentle. Mac, he was doing his job. I taught him that doctrine. Shoot and scoot. He was trying to relocate when the mortar hit. He saved the depot, killed 8 before they got him. Sullivan stands. His voice rises. First time Crawford has heard Sullivan shout, "I do not care." He was 20 years old. The outburst ends as quickly as it started. Sullivan's voice drops back to flat monotone. I should not have taught him to use ammunition that paints targets on people. That night Sullivan sits alone. Robert at Tarawa, Kowalski at Luzon. Both died because Sullivan could not solve the problem fast enough, could not innovate soon enough, could not save them. The guilt compounds, layers, becomes something Sullivan will carry for 58 years. Martinez finds him after midnight. Mac, you cannot blame yourself. Sullivan's response is immediate. Why not? I taught him everything. I gave him a weapon that lights up like a beacon. The mortar would have hit that position regardless. They were targeting the depot. You do not know that. Martinez pulls folded papers from his pocket. Captured Japanese documents, maps recovered from dead enemy officers. I do know that. Look, that position was marked as priority target before the attack started. Grid coordinates, range card, pre-planned fire mission. Kowalski was dead the moment he sat behind that gun. Did not matter what ammunition he used. Sullivan stares at the maps. The evidence is clear. The position was targeted. The attack was planned. Knowing this changes nothing. Kowalski is still dead. March 19th. Sullivan requests transfer off machine gun. Crawford denies the request. Mac, you are the best gunner in the company. I do not care. Put me on rifle. This is about Kowalski. This is about me spending 6 months developing ways to kill people more efficiently, and my assistant gunner dying because of it. Kowalski died doing his duty. His duty was feeding my belt. Not dying. I cannot approve your transfer. We need you. You needed Kowalski too. For 1 week, Sullivan refuses to train anyone on M1A1 employment. Private Morrison takes over Sullivan's M1919. Morrison uses standard ball ammunition only. March 22nd. Japanese probe the defense. Morrison's crew engages. Standard ammunition. 600 rounds expended. 2 confirmed kills. Enemy not deterred. 3 Americans wounded in Morrison's sector. Different crew using M1A1 and Sullivan doctrine. 180 rounds expended. 9 confirmed kills. Enemy retreats. 0 casualties in their sector. The difference is clear, quantifiable, undeniable. March 24th. Martinez confronts Sullivan. Mac Morrison's crew got shot up today. 3 wounded. Not my problem anymore. It is your problem. You developed tactics that prevent casualties. You are refusing to use them. I am refusing to turn people into targets. Martinez's voice hardens. Those orange flashes did not kill Kowalski. Bad luck and Japanese mortars did. But you know what, 20 other guys are alive because of what you taught them. 40 guys. 60 guys. How many flamethrower operators survived because M1919 exists, because they do not need to close to 30 yards anymore? Hundreds, maybe thousands. And you are going to quit because one man died. Sullivan has no response. Martinez continues. Danny told me something week before he died. He said Sullivan's doctrine is going to save a lot of lives. He was proud to be part of it. He believed in what you created. And now you are dishonoring that by quitting. March 25th. Sullivan reports to Crawford. Sir, I will go back on the gun. You sure know. But Martinez is right. Danny would not want me to quit. August 15th, 1945. Japan surrenders. War ends. Sullivan's crew is on Okinawa. The announcement comes over radio. Japan surrenders unconditionally. Sullivan and his replacement assistant gunner, Private Tommy Chen, 19 years old from San Francisco, sit in their foxhole, listening. Neither man celebrates. Chen asks the question. Sarge, what do we do now? Sullivan looks at the M1919, the weapon he has carried for 2 years, the weapon that killed 127 enemy soldiers by his count. Clean the gun, same as always. But the war is over. The war is over. The gun still needs cleaning. November 15th, 1945. Sullivan is discharged. Chicago. Family home. South Side. His mother thinks he looks thin. His father, a WWI veteran, asks how it was. Sullivan says it was war. His father nods, asks nothing more. Sullivan receives a letter from Army in December. Official, formal. Information regarding M1A1 incendiary explosive ammunition is classified restricted. Do not discuss technical specifications, tactical employment or combat results with unauthorized personnel. Sullivan burns the letter, thinks they do not want me to talk about it. Fine. I did not want to, anyway. He finds work as a machinist. Same trade he learned at 16. Chicago manufacturing. 12-hour shifts. 6 days a week. Quiet life. Never marries. Lives alone. The dreams never stop. Orange flashes. Kowalski's face. Robert burning. Some nights, Sullivan wakes thinking he smells burning aluminum. He keeps 3 items from the war. Discharge papers. 1 photograph of Company C with Kowalski visible in the back row. Technical Bulletin 4412. The doctrine he wrote. Sometimes he reads the doctrine, remembers writing it after burning Kowalski's hand. Wonders how many lives it saved. Wonders how many lives it cost. 1987. Chicago Community College Oral History Project. Sullivan is 66. His sister Mary convinces him to participate. The interview is brief. The interviewer asks what he did. Sullivan says, machine gunner, Pacific Theater, asks if he can share experiences. Sullivan pauses. We had special ammunition, rounds that exploded when they hit something, for tunnels. What was it like using it? Another pause. It worked. That is all I can say. Anything else you remember? I remember my assistant gunner, Danny Kowalski, 20 years old. He died March 1945. He was a good kid. Sullivan declines to continue. Interview ends. March 14th, 2003. Sullivan dies. Age 82. Pneumonia. Chicago Veterans Hospital. Sister Mary is with him. His final coherent words are, "Tell Danny I am sorry." Who is Danny? My assistant gunner. Tell him I am sorry I taught him to use the flashes. James, it is okay. No, it is not. It is never okay. He dies 4 hours later, 2008. Military researchers access Sullivan's complete service records, declassified. They identify him as first soldier to employ M1A1 in combat, November 14, 1944. Developer of field doctrine adopted theater-wide, estimated contribution 15 to 20% reduction in casualties for units using M1A1. Sullivan never knew. He died thinking he killed Kowalski, died apologizing, died carrying guilt. 2012. Frank Martinez, 90 years old, is interviewed for documentary. Mac Sullivan was the best machine gunner I ever worked with. He took ammunition nobody knew how to use and turned it into a weapon system that changed how we fought. Then he spent the rest of his life feeling guilty about it. That is the kind of man he was. He saved hundreds of lives, and all he could think about was the ones he could not save. Today, at the National Museum of the United States Army, you can see a display. Sectioned M1A1 round showing internal construction. Copy of Technical Bulletin 4412. Photograph of Company C Kowalski and Sullivan identified by name. The placard reads, M1A1 Incendiary Explosive Ammunition, 1944 to 1945. First employed by Staff Sergeant James Sullivan, November 14, 1944. Tactical doctrine developed in field conditions by Sullivan and other NCOs. Represents soldier-driven tactical innovation under combat pressure. What the placard does not say is Sullivan never knew his doctrine saved 300 to 500 American lives. Never knew his name appears in 47 after-action reports from units he never met. Never knew Japanese documents confirm his position was pre-targeted and Kowalski's death had nothing to do with M1A1 flashes. He died believing he killed his assistant gunner. 2003. Sullivan's funeral. Small service. Chicago. Martinez comes from New Mexico, wheelchair-bound, 89 years old. He speaks briefly. Mac was my friend for 60 years. We served together. He was one of the best soldiers I knew. Also one of the most troubled. War does that, even to the good ones, especially to the good ones. Martinez places a spent .30-06 casing on the casket. Standard brass, not M1A1, for Mac. May he finally find peace. James Sullivan returned from World War II with a Bronze Star. He never wore a technical bulletin bearing his innovations and psychological scars that never healed. He pioneered tactics that saved hundreds of lives. He influenced weapons development for decades. He never spoke publicly about his role. He never sought recognition. He spent 58 years thinking about the men he could not save, never acknowledging the ones he did. The M1A1 ammunition he first fired November 14, 1944, was classified and largely forgotten by 1950. Its existence was denied in public records until 1973, but the soldiers who used it remembered. They remembered the orange flashes, they remembered the thunder, and some like Sullivan remembered it every night for the rest of their lives. Innovation in war saves lives, but it does not absolve those who innovate. Sullivan carried both truths until the day he died. Private First Class Daniel Kowalski was killed in action March 18, 1945. He was 20 years old. He is buried in Manila American Cemetery. Sullivan visited once in 1987. Left a spent shell casing on the headstone. Standard brass. No note, no explanation. This is the cost of innovation. This is the price of victory. This is what we ask of soldiers. And this is why we remember. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to share this with people who need to understand that innovation comes at a cost. That cost is often carried by the innovators themselves. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you stories like this every week. Forgotten innovations. Ordinary Americans solving extraordinary problems. The human cost history textbooks ignore. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Did anyone in your family serve in World War II? Do you know stories of battlefield innovations? Share them. These stories deserve preservation. To Staff Sergeant James Sullivan, to Private First Class Daniel Kowalski, to every soldier who proved American ingenuity knows no limits when lives are on the line and carried the weight of that innovation for the rest of their lives. We remember, we honor, we tell your stories, because some histories are too important